What's up guys, welcome back to Vic's Vehicles. In part 5 of this E30 video series, I'm going to continue the engine rebuild process. In the last video, I replaced a timing belt, water pump, head gasket, spark plugs, and more. And the more I took the engine apart, I realized just how worn out everything was, and I should go ahead and replace whatever parts I could while the engine was out. First up, let's tackle the fuel injectors. Originally, I wasn't going to replace the injectors, but I figured these were original injectors and they were worn out by now. I especially wanted to replace the rubber seal, but unfortunately, to get the rubber seal off, you kind of destroy the cap on the end of the injector in the process. So I went ahead and ordered brand new injectors, and you can see here how the style has actually been updated throughout the years, and this is the latest version of the OEM injector. The spray pattern is probably better. I'm sure they refined it, but the main thing is that they have brand new rubber seals at the end. So now we can just take out the rest of these old injectors and just pop in the new ones. You do have like these clips that you kind of have to pop out first that hold the injector in place. Once you kind of pop this clip out, then you just kind of need to shimmy the injector out of the fuel rail. It is a little difficult just because this rubber seal kind of has it really snug in there, and at the same time you need to get it loosened from the connector simultaneously. So I've noticed that the easiest way to get these injectors off is to first remove your little wire clip. These are a pain to get off, but I mean, figure out the best way that suits you. And then once those wire clips are off, I mean, pretty much this whole thing comes out. So I suggest, unclipping your harness connector first, and then that way you kind of have a lot more free motion to just kind of like rotate these guys and yank them out. Yeah, they're in there pretty tight. This guy does not want to come out. Yeah, so that's basically how much force you need, and that just goes to show you like how properly these rubber seals are really holding the injector in and preventing any fuel from leaking out. Okay, so for the fuel rail, now we have the injectors attached to the electrical harness. Now all we gotta do is attach this feed rail on top. Essentially, you just gotta press fit all this together just like that. With the silicone lubricant, you can see how it just slides right in. Before it was almost impossible to even snap it in. Now it goes in pretty easy. And then, once it's in, you can put on your little retaining clips to make sure they don't back out. Once your fuel rail is all set, you can go ahead and reattach it back to the intake manifold. Next, before we put the intake manifold back on, we're going to check the valve clearances between the rocker and the camshaft. You want to make sure you have just the right amount of clearance, otherwise your timing will be off. Once you loosen the bolt that secures the rocker with a 10mm wrench, you can use Allen key to kind of rotate the rocker around and put the appropriate amount of contact on the feeler gauge. Once you're satisfied with the angle of the rocker, go ahead and retighten it. So here I'll show you an example of where you have a really loose valve. So if I just kind of like rock on this, you can kind of get a feel of just exactly how much play there is. Like some of these other ones that I just adjusted, it's a little tighter. This one sounds really good, it's really tight. This one you can feel there's so much wiggle. And sure enough, and then when I put in my feeler gauge, you can see just how easy it's coming in and out. Like there should be some drag on it, but this is just way too loose. It's just, yeah, you gotta tighten this one just a little bit. And don't forget to replace your rocker plugs and use some gasket maker on top of it. The old ones tend to get mangled up whenever you replace your valve cover gasket. After checking the valve clearances, I decided to give my valve cover a nice refreshening before I put it back on. In this case, I gave it a nice coat of black paint. And then once the black paint dries, I'm going to scrape off the part where it has the stripes and the BMW logo just to give it some nice contrast. Don't forget about the oil feed return tube that goes down here. And I put on a new gasket, new washer. You could barely even tell there was one in there, but look at the old one. It basically got compressed into like this weird square looking thing. Slowly but surely, everything is coming back together. And you can see how I kind of repainted a lot of these parts just to make them look brand new. And I'm amazed at what a fresh coat of paint just does to make this engine look so much better than it did before. So I run into a couple random and annoying issues. The first one being that I kind of forgot what order I disassembled the parts. And it does matter because there's a specific order to reassemble. For example, here's a thermostat housing. This won't go in because it just hits the fuel rail, and fortunately I already tightened the intake manifold down, so I basically had to loosen the intake manifold so I could tilt it up and then clear the fuel rail. So I don't understand why this is in the way. It's just like touching that much, so Yeah, another annoying step. I got rid of all the old nuts, some were rounded off, so then I bought brand new hardware for that. And then speaking of brand new hardware, this was interesting. The bolt that secures the upper timing cover, for some reason, it won't catch the threads. Like, it somehow got way too short. So I don't know what's going on with that. But basically, if you go to Home Depot, I just got a new M6 by 1 60mm bolt, which is just a little bit longer than the original, which should catch the threads. Next, we're gonna put in the new studs for the headers. The old ones kind of seized to the old nuts and they just came out as one piece when I took the bolts out, or the nuts. But essentially, I got a bag of all new special header studs, and then we're just gonna thread these in. That way we can reattach the headers. I'm also putting a little bit of anti-seize on the end of the thread, just to make it a little easier to slip in and prevent any future seizing. And then I try to get it as hand tight as possible, and then just try to give it a few more rotations with a plier. Just try to get it in level with, you know, the original one, which I probably have to get out. And you can see with the plier just how easy it starts to go in. Doesn't really take much force at all. Okay, so all the studs are in now, and now we can reattach the headers. They'll just slide right on. And then this is where you need to use new hardware. Basically, I got new copper nuts, and you see these kind of have like a oblong shape. Basically, they'll deform as soon as you tighten them. That kind of gives it that locking action. But definitely use copper nuts. They're meant to expand with all the heat going on here. And don't use stainless steel because they're going to fuse. Copper kind of gives that nice anti-seizing action, anti-corrosive action. And then just for, you know, more security, I also put some anti-seize on as I put these nuts on. Oh, actually, don't forget to put on your gaskets first. Need to take this off and do that. and then just keep on repeating that for all the studs. I also replaced the seals on the oil filter housing. This housing was definitely leaking oil from everywhere, including the pressure valve right there, so I went ahead and replaced that as well. Definitely do not overlook the oil filter housing. And within the housing there's also this banjo type of bolt, which has another seal right there that got all squished, so don't forget to replace that one as well. So that's it for part 5. We've gotten most of the engine work done, and all that's remaining is the transmission work. In part 6, I'll go over how to reattach the new clutch, rebolt the transmission back on, and we can finally drop this engine back into the E30. And as usual, if you guys enjoy this content, please like and subscribe to Vic's Vehicles, as it really helps out the channel, and I can't wait to bring you guys more car content.